Gurv Mahagat, agus is cús áhas dom an rún seo thuirtos cóir na dála anocht. Tá cúpla mí caite agam leis an comhaontas glas ag pléin na ceiste seo, a caithí mé a ráis, tar éis na tragóda ú fásach le Grenville Tower, gur pránach na cuasaí seo ná riomh-ribhe. Is údar imní cad a tharla i London an teachtain seo caite, agus tá dúlgas uirinn a cinú nach bhéadach a leithúid tarlú in Éireann. I am delighted to bring this motion before the Dáil this evening, a motion which the Green Party has been working on in conjunction with leading experts in this field for the past number of months, and which we published weeks before the horrendous tragedy in West London last week. In opening the debate, I do offer my deepest sympathies to the families and friends of loved ones caught up and engulfed in that horrific fire which occurred last week in the land of our nearest neighbours. Ar yesterday, Guerrera Namaka, Kiblimij Orhu. The motion this evening calls on the Government to properly tackle the sorry legacy of defects in housing construction and to strengthen building standards and regulation in order to safeguard against this building and regulatory failure ever occurring again. A ceann comhairle, this government and the previous government have shown no political appetite or priority in dealing effectively with serious problems and issues arising from appalling construction quality and safety of so many homes built during the boom time era. There have been a series of crises, from the well-documented Priory Hall debacle to the high-profile Longboat Quay shambles, to many other serious and varied problems which have emerged around the length and breadth of the country, including in my own constituency of Dublin Rathdown. I appreciate that the newly appointed minister is very new to his brief, but your party and your government colleagues certainly are not. Though in the last 4 years we have had 4 housing ministers, which shows the level of genuine intent and respect for the role of this ministry, which is at the centre of the biggest crisis of our time, and is an indicator of how that critically important ministry has been treated in recent times. It has become the revolving door ministry, with no continuity, no stability and no appropriate demonstration of the level of priority and real action that it clearly and urgently merits. It is nearly 6 years since the Priory Hall development was found to be gravely defective, and yet there are no new remedies and proper building standards in this country. Instead, we are still operating on a trust the builder basis, and homeowners and prospective homeowners are expected to put their faith in builders without an independent regulator. Minister, in case you might not be aware, people do not trust builders to self-regulate. We are in the middle of a housing crisis, and new homes are so urgently needed, and we are all in agreement about that. However, we cannot sacrifice the safety of people in their homes in order to pacify the construction industry lobby. Safety must be paramount in any and all construction. There is a duty on government to protect its people against greed-driven building standards and incompetent rogue cowboy builders. Now, I wish to emphasise that I am not saying that all builders are incompetent, nor are they all rogues. But a number of builders and developers have done a huge disservice to the many genuine, decent, hard-working people working in this industry. This evening, we have an opportunity to take the first concrete steps in stopping rogue builders in their tracks by introducing measures which, for once and for all, will put individuals and families first and protect them against these chancers. That is, in essence, the priority: to protect ordinary consumers who buy their family dream home in good faith. In January, I asked the former Taoiseach Deputy Kennedy, how many times must the issue of defective buildings rear its ugly head before the people who are affected by it have some level of certainty about the relief they can seek? Now, many months later, those same people are still in limbo, still uncertain as to what assistance, legal or financial, the state can provide them. The former Taoiseach, in his reply to me in this House last January, also said that he could not guarantee that there are not more Priory Halls, more Longboat Quays out there. Kevin Hollingsworth of the Society of Chartered Surveyors Ireland has recently said that over the past 3 or 4 years, he has remediated 29 developments for fire safety issues. Now, not all of these find their way to the media spotlight, with many feeling compelled to suffer in silence, to suffer at the hands of a government who they feel is not listening to their needs and does not have the hunger or the appetite to make a real difference in their lives. Minister, in case you're in any doubt, let me tell you this evening that some individuals and families, some of them up here in the gallery tonight, are suffering immense and ongoing stress and incredible financial pressure as a result of this state granting builders a type of carte blanche, giving them a near free-for-all to do what they want. Must these homeowners and many other people who have yet to learn how they will be affected by defective building, must they forever be reliant on a government which continues to act in an ad hoc, wait-and-see manner? Last week, we saw and heard the horrifying news of the fire at Grenfell Tower in London. Our hearts are with those who lost their lives, but our minds must be set on ensuring that this does not happen here. In response to this tragedy, Chi Onwurah MP wrote in The Guardian last week that for her, there are the souls of the dead in every sub-clause of health and safety legislation. Health and safety is a matter of dull box checking and red tape at times, but it is also absolutely vital. These are people's homes. This is a matter of public health and safety, and sometimes, ultimately, it can be a matter of life or death. In order to deliver that safety, that most fundamental of protections, we need radical change in how we view and value our buildings. We need to act with a safety-first attitude and not just talk about it. As members of this House, we need to once and for all stand up to the construction industry and put people's lives first. It was reported recently that the Construction Industry Federation were writing the new Building Control Bill. Now, while that report has been noted by the Department as being incorrect, it still does not help dissuade us of the picture of a government which has been for far too long too close to the influential construction industry and too passive in their willingness to enforce high standards. This is not something we would tolerate in the food industry, in road safety, in car safety, where people's health is at stake. There is no reason why we should tolerate it when it comes to the standards and the safeties at which we build people's homes. Our housing is a public safety issue. We need a regulator like our food regulator, which has specialised statutory powers to name and shame dodgy builders who put people's health and safety at serious risk and is empowered to put things right. In order to do this, in the motion before the House today, the Green Party is calling on the Government to create a new, strong, independent building regulator. We need a properly funded National Building Regulation Office wherein such a building regulator will oversee national building control and actively and robustly regulate those involved in construction. We need to stop systematic failures in building control happening again and again, by ensuring that building standards are raised and that there is appropriate building control compliance in this country, including fully resourcing the new Building Regulator Office with a real and effective enforcement agency. And we must provide protection and support for homeowners who discover that there are serious latent defects in their homes by improving existing legal remedies. This country has been plagued by cowboy developers, and there is very little in the current building control regime safeguarding against and stopping it from happening again, and no comfort for the consumer. We cannot say that we have not been warned. The Building Control Amendment Regulations brought in 2014 put in place an assigned certifier system, but there are still huge problems with this. As Orla Hegarty of UCD has said, that in the case of a self-builder or a developer, They're effectively appointing someone to police themselves, and that the appointed person doesn't have to be independent of the process and has no legal powers. Minister, as it stands, there is no guarantee that the assigned certifier must be independent of the developer. In fact, they can still be an employee of the developer and have other close links to the developer he is certifying. And this setup fails to instil trust and confidence for ordinary consumers. It totally undermines the concept of independent regulation and is not something we'd accept in any other industry, particularly one where people's lives could be put at risk. We need to look at the regulation of the construction industry in terms of risk management. We need to put the resources in place for ongoing inspections from fire safety service and fire safety authorities, not just a fire safety certificate before you start. I welcome the new statutory regulations which will come into effect soon, requiring houses to be built to prevent the spread of fire internally and externally, and to have an adequate means of escape, and also which impose obligation on landlords to ensure that rented properties meet certain standards. However, these regulations must be accompanied by adequate resourcing of Building Control Authority for ensuring compliance and dealing effectively with breaches. How can you promise building standards will be adhered to if you cannot promise that independent inspections will actually be carried out? All the rules in the world do not matter, Minister, if there is no credible threat of enforcement. How can you assure the public and promise there will be no dangerous shortcuts if you provide no enforcement? The enforcement agency must have real teeth and not be regarded as a harmless pushover by builders. How many convictions, Minister, have there been under the Building Control Act since it was introduced in 1992? The former Minister for Housing couldn't answer that when I submitted a parliamentary question seeking that information. Nobody seems to know, and that's very alarming. And worse still, many innocent people caught up in this storm, a storm not of their making, believe that this government does not care. Local authority reports are light on detail when it comes to enforcement by building control authorities. And again, when I put a parliamentary question to your predecessor earlier this year, I was told that your department is not responsible for the oversight of building control authorities. How can you be sure of the strength of the enforcement of building regulations if you don't have oversight over the actions of building control authorities? At this stage, people quite reasonably wish to judge the Minister on deeds and not mere words alone. There are 31 building control authorities in this country, but they are not compelled to produce an annual report. A leading academic in this field, Deirdre Neeline, examined all 31 annual local authority reports for 2015. There was very little reference to enforcement, never mind prosecution. That's simply not good enough. Effective building regulation requires an independent regulator, and that is why many experts in this field agree with the Green Party's call for the establishment of an Irish building authority at arm's length from the vested interests of the construction industry. Minister, there is compelling evidence to initiate that step this evening, and to do otherwise, however you may dress it up, would be a cop-out, an abdication of responsibility. Do not abandon these people of Ireland who may not have the deep, wealthy pockets of some developers, who suffered most, but ironically whose voice is least heard, as they do not have that easy and ready access to the powers that be in this country. But alongside all this, it is vital that we do not lose sight of the goal of a real and lasting long-term solution for residents, some here who are listening attentively to this, some at home, who are the innocent victims of defective buildings. What redress and tangible support do these hard-working people have when major defects are discovered in their homes? In many cases, the builder has gone bust, but our forgiving corporate insolvency laws allows them to return to the workforce. They are given a fresh start, a second chance, a bright new day. Regrettably, in the proposed general scheme of the Building Control Construction Industry Register Ireland Bill 2017, these rogue builders will continue to get second chances, as it is proposed that a builder who is struck off for a period of time may apply to be restored to the register on merely demonstrating compliance with registration criteria and payment of the standard fee. Not good enough, Minister. In contrast, the contractor responsible for the Berkeley balcony collapse has had its licence revoked for 5 years, and its managing director must pay the Californian Registration Board investigation fees of $99,000 before the licence can be granted, and may still, in due course, face a custodial sentence. But, Minister, no second chances for the individual citizen in Ireland, the ordinary consumer where major defects are discovered in their homes. They do not enjoy such corporate protections. They are abandoned. How many times must this issue rear its ugly head before the people who are so adversely affected by it have some level of certainty? Simple first steps would include clarification from you, Minister, as to whether or not this government is serious about offering tax reliefs for the undertaking of essential repair works. Given income tax relief in respect of repair costs incurred together with a suspension of local property tax and VAT relief along the lines of the home renovation initiative are all practical, reasonable measures which can, if the political will exists, be done quickly in order to ease the burden on residents. Secondly, the government should consider creating a loan fund for those who cannot pay. Section 71 of the 1966 Housing Act has a model for how this can work, and this needs to be adapted and rolled out by local authorities to give assistance to homeowners. In conjunction with the implementation of these measures, and again it is covered in this evening's Green Party motion, it is crucial that the government introduce a transmissible warranty of quality from builders and developers in favour of all subsequent purchasers, so that damages can be sought from the original developers, ensuring that there can no longer be place to run, no shelter or place to hide for rogue builders. And an inexpensive consumer-friendly dispute resolution mechanism for homeowners should be established. For example, landlords and tenants who find themselves in dispute in respect of a tenancy have easy access, free of charge, to the RTP dispute resolution service. But what resolution do homeowners have facing into this unprecedented storm? Nothing, Minister. In order to ensure the state will never again be taken as a soft touch, it is crucial that increased resources must be pooled into this arm of local government with responsibility for robustly monitoring new bills, and in order to be taken seriously, a properly resourced enforcement agency must work in tandem with the supervisory division to ensure that inadequate building standards will not be tolerated. 25 years of evidence tells us that leaving the construction industry to its own devices results in widespread dangerous breaches. Minister, will one of your first acts as Housing Minister be to support this motion, to stand up to the construction industry, and in doing so stand up for the health and safety of the people? Or will it be to cave in to vested interests, giving them their way yet again and allowing them to continue to put lives at risk? The tragic inferno in West London last week is a stark reminder that the overriding priority underpinning all construction must be the safety of residents. In the rush to build the houses so urgently needed in this country, we must ensure that this time we do it right and that all houses are built to an acceptable and safe standard. I would ask members of this House that you have a duty to create as a legislative framework to support all those who are living the nightmare and haven't had defects discovered in their homes, and to prevent this happening to another generation of homeowners. And I would ask you to please consider these homeowners and what they're going through, help these homeowners and stop it from happening to another generation of homeowners. Gurv Magath.